The movie opens with a train guard named Joe walking along the platform as passengers search for their trains. Joe enters a small cabin and finds a rejection letter from the railway authorities, informing him that his application for a supervisor position has been declined. Disheartened, Joe crumples the letter and throws it away in frustration. Shortly thereafter, another supervisor arrives and notifies Joe that he must cover the night shift on the train departing for Eastborough. Around this time, Ellen, a colleague of Joe's, arrives to begin her own night shift on the train. Moments later, Joe reluctantly boards the train, exhausted after his earlier shift, but ready to fulfill his duties. Joe begins checking the tickets and passes of the passengers who have already boarded. When he approaches a woman named Kate, she is unable to produce her ticket, having misplaced it, and is forced to pay a fine of €39 for her negligence.
Hang on. What? Seriously?
Tickets, please.
In the same carriage, another passenger named Billy arrives and goes to sit among the other travelers. In the same compartment, we see another young woman named Nina, who annoys the other passengers with her lengthy conversation on the phone. When Joe asks her for her ticket, she initially ignores him, but after several prompts, she finally responds and hands him her ticket. Joe continues his inspection, moving to another compartment and asking a man named Adrian, who is wearing headphones, to present his ticket. Soon after, Ellen comes through the carriage, serving light refreshments to the passengers. It becomes clear from Joe's demeanor that he harbors feelings for Ellen. At one point, another passenger, Paul, heads to the restroom as he has to relieve himself. Joe returns to his cabin, sits down, and gazes out the window at the heavy rain. He dozes off for about an hour, only to be jolted awake when the train is suddenly derailed after crashing into something, causing panic to sweep through the carriage. Joe heads to the driver's cabin to find out what really caused the train to stop suddenly. Adrian helps Ellen and Joe collect the food items lying on the floor. Driver Tony gets off the train in the dark night and begins inspecting the compartments, one by one. Inside, all the passengers become restless and ask Joe to tell them what happened outside. Outside the train, the driver keeps checking for the fault that caused the stoppage. Inside the train, the passengers begin losing their calm and force Joe to reveal the truth. While continuing his inspection, the driver finds a deer under the train, crushed by it. He begins pulling it out, but meanwhile, he hears growling emanating from the dense woods, which leaves him terrified. Not long after, an unknown creature attacks the driver from the bushes, killing him instantly. Joe enters the compartment and finds Nina smoking. He asks her not to smoke, but she completely ignores him, prompting Joe to snatch the cigarette himself. Then, he heads to the driver's cabin to get an update from the driver. He opens the cabin only to find it empty. So, he decides to look for the driver outside, but finds no sign of him. Joe contacts the control room, informing them that the train has broken down on its way to Eastborough, and the driver is missing too. The person on the other side explains that fallen trees not only cause the train breakdown, but also signal failures. Joe goes to the passengers and explains the reason for the train breakdown. Moreover, he reveals that he doesn't know where the driver is, leaving the passengers aghast. Adrian silences the panicked passengers and asks them to focus on doing something rather than panicking. He suggests that they should cover the rest of their journey on foot by following the tracks through the woods. But Joe disagrees and does not allow anyone to get off the train. However, under pressure, he reluctantly gets out of the train with the other passengers and starts heading into the woods. Meanwhile, Joe and the other passengers are being stalked by someone hiding in the forest, completely unaware of the danger. As they make their way through the woods, Joe and the others notice something moving in the distant bushes. After only a few steps, they stumble upon the driver's corpse, torn apart and lying in the bushes. The gruesome sight sends a chill down everyone's spine, and they rush back to the train in terror as howls echo through the forest, heightening their fear. They all manage to board the train just in time, except for Jenny, whose leg is caught by the charging creature. Terrified, the others pull her inside, ensuring no further injuries, but Jenny's leg is severely wounded and becomes infected as it remains outside during the struggle. Jenny screams in pain while everyone tries to calm her amidst the chaos. Ellen quickly washes the wound, stops the bleeding, and bandages it to prevent further infection. Suddenly, the creature violently strikes the train, throwing the passengers to the floor. Trembling with fear at the sound of its loud howl, Joe peers out the door but sees nothing, allowing the group a momentary sigh of relief. Joe then goes to the driver's cabin to contact the control room, but receives no response, leaving him hopeless. Billy, a would-be engineer, joins Joe and points out the leaking fuel, stating that they cannot escape the forest until the leaking fuel tank is repaired. Meanwhile, Ged supports his wife Jenny, insisting to Joe that she needs immediate medical attention.
My wife needs medical attention now.
Was it then a wolf?
It wasn't an animal.
Jenny tries to explain that it was not an animal, but a human-like creature that attacked her, but no one believes her, assuming she is in shock. At that moment, one of the train's doors begins rattling, terrifying everyone. Joe grabs a fire extinguisher and heads toward the noise, accompanied by Billy and Adrian. They approach the rattling door, prepared to confront whatever lies beyond, only to discover Paul, who had gone to the restroom earlier and is oblivious to the events unfolding inside and outside the train.
I don't believe this.
Have you not heard anything we just told you?
It's great to have you on board.
Jenny's condition begins to deteriorate while Kate and Ellen attend to her. Moments later, the violent and ravenous creature tries to break down the door, leaving the terrified group trembling with fear. Meanwhile, Nina receives a phone call from her mother. Suddenly, the creature breaks the window and snatches Nina away, leaving the others horrified. The group then moves to another carriage to avoid the creature and shuts the door tightly behind them. Kate is devastated by Nina's loss, as she regarded her as a daughter, and she chastises the others for stopping her from trying to save Nina. Everyone begins to lose hope of escaping the sinister forest alive. Ged encourages the group, urging them to make it more difficult for the creature to harm them. Now the passengers, who were once strangers, now start working as a team, closing windows and sealing other openings to defend themselves against the monster. Ged approaches Joe and asks for a bottle of water for his wounded wife, Jenny. So he brings a bottle and hands it to Ged, who thanks him for his cooperation and help. Soon after, Adrian approaches Joe and tries to manipulate him, suggesting they could escape together and leave the others to be killed by the creature. But Joe remains silent. Meanwhile, Jenny vomits on Ged, her husband.
Shut it.
Joe then discovers that Paul is missing and informs the others. He decides to search for Paul in another compartment. As Joe leaves, the selfish Adrian locks the door behind him. After using the restroom, Paul finds the door jammed and cannot get out. The creature soon appears, causing chaos. Joe frantically tries to open the door, but the creature breaks into the restroom and brutally kills Paul, while Joe watches helplessly. Hearing the commotion, a wave of fear sweeps over the panicked passengers in the adjoining compartment. After killing Paul, the creature stalks Joe, but at the last moment, the others drag Joe into the carriage, keeping the creature at bay for now. The creature begins tearing down the door, freezing everyone with fear. Soon, the creature breaks into the carriage and howls at Joe, rattling him to his core. Kate attacks it with an iron bar, but she is thrown aside by the towering beast. Seizing the opportunity, the group charges at the creature with various tools and knocks it to the floor. However, the creature retaliates and hoists Billy into the air. At that moment, Matthew rushes in and strikes the creature with an axe, knocking it down before repeatedly hacking at it. Joe examines the corpse and concludes that it is a werewolf, not a normal creature. Kate notices a ring on the werewolf's finger, suggesting it was once human and was infected. Ged then reveals the story of the Thornton Forest rail crash of 1963, explaining that when rescuers arrived, they found only bodies half-eaten by animals, with no explanation as to what had truly happened. The same ill event is now repeating itself. Suddenly, the werewolf rises again, prompting Joe to crush its head with a fire extinguisher, killing it for good. Meanwhile, Jenny begins to transform into a werewolf. Adrian grabs a tool and tries to kill her, but Ged stops him, insisting she is only sick and nothing more. Adrian ignores him and prepares to attack Jenny, prompting Joe to intervene and knock Adrian down. The group ties Adrian up to prevent further chaos. Billy then states that he must fix the leaking fuel tank and is the only one capable of doing so. Before leaving the train, Billy instructs Ellen and Joe on the next steps once he repairs the tank. Then he and Matthew exit, risking their lives, with Matthew carrying an axe for safety. Search for the leaking tank, and Billy eventually finds it and goes under the train while Matthew stands guard nearby. He asks Matthew to give him the tape to wrap around the leaking pipe. Suddenly, Matthew is distracted by the sound of a woman screaming in the woods, so he heads to the forest, leaving Billy on his own. Upon inspecting, he finds Mina atop a tree being fed upon by another werewolf, revealing that Fortin Woods are infested with werewolves. Terrified, Matthew rushes back toward the train, but is surrounded and killed by a pack of werewolves. Hearing his screams, Billy and the others realize his fate. Meanwhile, Billy manages to fix the leak, restoring power to the train. Outside, 2 werewolves are drawn to Billy's scent, but fail to find him as he hides beneath the train. Joe starts the engine only to see several werewolves blocking the tracks. Jenny fully transforms into a werewolf, frightening Ged. She soon escapes her restraints and attacks Adrian. Joe, following Billy's instructions, drives the train. Meanwhile, a werewolf breaks in and grabs Kate. Instead of helping, Adrian maliciously kicks Kate out of the train, and she is violently killed by a werewolf. Inside, Adrian attacks Jenny with a wrench, but Ged retaliates. Shortly after, the transformed Jenny bites Ged, infecting him. As Billy remains trapped beneath the train, the fuel leak resumes, causing the train to break down again. Joe and Ellen begin to panic. As Jenny turns her aggression toward Adrian, Joe stabs her with an iron bar, saving Adrian. At the same time, more werewolves break into the train in search of humans. Joe tries to unlock the door to escape into the woods, but Adrian attacks and knocks him down, as he didn't like the idea. Joe fights back but is overpowered until Ellen intervenes, rescuing him. Seeing more werewolves trying to break in, Adrian locks Joe and Ellen in a compartment and flees. Soon, the werewolves enter from both doors to feast on them. Out of nowhere, Billy returns with torches, setting several werewolves on fire and forcing them to retreat, giving Joe time to unlock the door and escape. However, Billy is captured by the creatures while saving Joe and Ellen. Ellen and Joe flee into the woods, but are continuously pursued by werewolves. Upon realizing that they can't escape the woods together, Joe decides to distract the werewolves and asks Ellen to flee, but Ellen pleads with him to get away with her. In a final moment, Joe kisses her and forces her to run away. Not long after, he is surrounded by a pack of starving werewolves who make him their prey instantly. Adrian escapes into the forest and soon encounters a group of werewolves, led by Joe, who is now a werewolf. In the twinkling of an eye, all the werewolves attack Adrian, making him one of their kind.